Hey guys, what's up? Today we are here at the Lagoon Valley Regional Park, but in this exact area we are here at Peña Adobe. As you can see, there is a tour, but it's only the first Saturday of each month from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So let's do the walking tour of this area. Let's go!
The Peña Adobe is a historic building and park in Vacaville. It is the oldest structure built in Solano County in California in the United States. There is no entrance fee to the park. And let's begin with the history. It all began when some of the first settlers to arrive in Solano County were the families of Juan Manuel Vaca and Juan Felipe Peña. Peña came with his wife Isabela Gonsalves and their 6 children. Vaca's wife died in 1839, but he was accompanied by their 8 children. Vaca remarried Estefano Martinez in 1845. The Vaca and Peña families traveled from the New Mexico region to California, following the old Spanish Trail, which terminated at Pueblo de Los Angeles, arriving in Southern California after their 2-month journey on November 15, 1841. They met General Mariano Vallejo, who maintained his headquarters in Sonoma. He told them of a fertile land in the north called the Lagoon Valley, and agreed to grant them a vast amount of this land if they fulfilled the requirement to build homes, plant trees, and pasture livestock within a year. The families continued north on El Camino Real through the Santa Barbara to Monterey, arriving in what later became the Vaca Valley. The Peña Adobe was erected in 1842, built by the Californios and designed by Juan Felipe on the Rancho Los Putos. The Vaca Adobe was built to the east side of the Peña Adobe, but it was destroyed by an earthquake in 1892. When the families had satisfied Vallejo's requirements, the 44,384 acre site, named Rancho Los Putos, was officially granted to Vaca and Peña in 1845. The territory includes all of Lagoon Valley and stretches into Yolo County. Both families engaged in cattle ranching, as hides and tallow were the principal source of trade and income. With the cession of California to the United States following the Mexican-American War, the 1848 Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo provided that the land grants will be honored. On August 21, 1850, Vaca sold a portion of his land to William McDaniel for $3,000. The transaction included a specific condition that 1 square mile, or 640 acres, will be used to create a township called Vacaville. The town was founded the following year in 1851. McDaniel's partner was the Benicia attorney Lansing M. Misner. In exchange for laying out the town and tending to the legal paperwork, Misner received half of the land in the deal with Vaca. Vaca could not speak, read, write English, but Misner, fluent in both Spanish and English, was the interpreter for the transaction. McDaniel was a federal land agent, and it was against the law for him to be involved in purchasing land. It was the cause of the major quarrel between Peña and Vaca. In response, Peña received 200 lots in the town of Vacaville. Vaca was also upset about the McDaniel deal. He said he had believed he was signing over only 1 square mile. Vaca posted in a Benicia newspaper, "Caution, I hereby notify all persons not to purchase any lands from William McDaniel, which he claims to have purchased from me under a title which he obtained from me from false claim." McDaniel sued Vaca for libel and the loss of the land sale. The jury found Vaca guilty, but the California Supreme Court overturned the decision, ruling that Vaca's newspaper warning was something that every freeman and freeholder would be justified in making. After the 2 rancheros quarrel, Vaca sold his adobe to John Wesley Hill. Juan Manuel Vaca died in 1856. Juan Felipe Peña died on March 15, 1863. Mrs. Peña lived with the adobe until her death in 1885, being cared by her only daughter, Nestora. While all the Vaca land holdings were sold by 1880, Nestora retained her inheritance until she was 8 years old. She also lived in Adobe until the death of her husband in 1900. She later moved to Vacaville where she resided until her death in 1922. Having no children, she deeded her inheritance, consisting of the Adobe and 90 acres, to the oldest Peña grandchildren, Maria Dolores Peña Leon and her cousin Vidal Peña. The Adobe remained with their children until 1957, eventually becoming the Vacaville City Park in 1965. The Peña Adobe Historical Society was established in 2004, staffed by volunteers committed to preserving the Adobe.
Hey guys, so since the museum and the walking tours are not available today, you can always go to here where they have walking tour pamphlets. It makes you do it your own tour of the Adobe Park, which you can get something like this. It has the sites, the maps, and the information about the park. So let's go and check it out.
Elm tree. Speculated to be around 100 years old, this tree is a survivor of the Dutch elm disease, which killed millions of elms over much of the country. Orange tree. Orange trees are not native to this area of California. It is believed that as the Peñas may have picked up this citrus when they went through Southern California, this tree is thought to be the second oldest orange tree in the state. Statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It is an image of the Virgin Mary that is believed to have appeared in Mexico on the cloak of a native man. In 1737, it was chosen as a patroness of Mexico City. Peña Adobe. Construction started on the Adobe in 1842 and was completed several years later. The bottom floors consist of 3 rooms. The walls of the Adobe are 2 feet thick and are made up of Adobe mud bricks. In 1880, the Adobe was modernized by encasing the entire structure with wood, and a kitchen was also added. The house was abandoned in 1950, leaving it to deteriorate. In 1965, the entire house was restored. Ovens. Built for cooking, the brick that the oven is made from absorbed all the heat that the fire exerted. A woman who was cooking could put bread in it, and the heat from the bricks would raise the dough. The heated brick was also used in making tortillas, where they were put on the outside surface and then heated by the brick. The Mowers Cohen Museum. It was originally the add-on kitchen that was constructed in 1880. The kitchen was dragged about 50 feet and now stands here. It is now filled with artifacts dating from the archaeological digs of the 1960s. The Willis Lynn Jepson Garden. Named after the Vacaville native botanist and wrote a book entitled A Flora of Western Middle California. He collected specimens from Lagoon Valley and loved to spend his time here. The garden has statues, a patio with chairs. There were also black mission graves, cedar of Lebanon trees, and even cork oak tree. There are also a variety of flowers. The Indian Council Grounds, also known as the Burial Grounds. During the Adobe restoration, remains of Indians were found and were buried here. There were most likely the Uletis Indians, who lived in the area for hundreds of years. Along with the Susans, Patwin, and Winson Indians, they formed a nation that occupied the entire western Sacramento Valley. But during the 1830s, there was an epidemic that was brought in from Hispanic and Russian settlements, which wiped out entire villages in the area. There is also a pioneer monument. collection of farm equipment. Now we've seen all the interesting points in the brochure. Today, the Peña Adobe is the gateway to Vacaville.
So besides exploring the adobe, there's still a lot of things to see and do in this park, so that's what we're going to do right now. So let's go!
Now we will be walking along the lagoon and up the hill. As I mentioned before, the Native Americans have lived in the Lagoon Valley area for hundreds of years. This region was first occupied by the Olatis Indians, who supported themselves with hunting and fishing, as well as foraging for local vegetation. Unfortunately, the population was decimated by the epidemic brought in by settlers in the 1830s. On top of the hill on the northern trail of the Peña Adobe Park is the Peña Adobe Cemetery, a historic graveyard. It has been moved a few times. From 1917 to 1920, the graveyard had about 389 wooden marked graves. It was abandoned and the site was used as sheep grazing by rancher William B. O'Connor, who had bought the land. The graves were moved in May 1966. Walking down on the other side of the hill is the historical Jack Hume Grove. Named after William Jack and Charles Hume, built in 1850. Jack Hume Grove grew crops on the land. In 1897, a railroad line was built to move his crops to San Francisco to be sold.
So guys, that's it for our walking tour of the Peña Adobe and exploring the history of the Peña and Vaca families of this valley. Until next time, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Bye!
If you like our videos, please click thumbs up for like.
Hit the bell to subscribe!
Please comment.
And don't forget to share!